Welcome. Often the HR department is responding to a multitude of questions regarding job offers and onboarding. What types of questions you ask? From the leaders, can you send me an employee agreement for a contract temporary employee part-time? I need to reactivate Jim Smith. Jim Smith had an injury at work. From staff, I didn't get my paycheck, or I can't seem to get scheduled. Can you confirm if I'm a 1099 employee versus W-2? Can I get reimbursed for fingerprints? From government agencies, banks, and courts. I need employment verification for John Smith. Can you withhold XX dollars for child support? All sound like basic employment questions, right? Well, it depends. The most basic questions about the employment relationship is whether a worker is in fact an employee or an independent contractor. As with so many employment law issues, the answer is it depends. Let's explore the difference. In this case, it depends on who is asking: the Internal Revenue Service, the U.S. Department of Labor, a workers' compensation hearing officer, and so on. Regardless of what the employer calls the worker, contractor, freelancer, consultant, or gig worker, the same principles apply. Employee status triggers employers' obligation under various federal and state laws that do not apply to independent contractors, and the responsibility for classifying a worker correctly falls squarely on the employer. But classify them wrong and prepare to pay penalties to multiple agencies. What is a 1099 employee? Today, we see project-based gig works in almost every industry and profession, still referred to as independent contractors under most employment laws. Today's gig worker includes the mid-career travel nurse wanting to broaden his work experience. Let's explore how to properly classify a 1099 employee. There are no legal tests that applies in every situation when deciding to classify a worker as an independent contractor. For example, the IRS and the Department of Labor uses different, although similar, analytical frameworks. In fact, the multiplicity of tests defining independent contractor status applied across federal and state laws makes it possible for a worker to be classified as an independent contractor under one law, but as an employee under another. To minimize legal risk, employers are well advised to ensure that classification as an independent contractor will satisfy every test that may be applicable where the organization does business. What is an employee? The Department of Labor uses characteristics under the Federal Labor Standard Act, which manages wage and hour. An employment relationship under the Federal Labor Standard Act must be distinguished from just having a contract. Let's first explore what is an employee. An employee is referred to a person who is 1. Engaged in a business of his or her own, typically a company with an EIN number. Secondly, one who receives a paycheck under the payroll system and has completed the onboarding process of completing a W-4, having the company conduct, pay, and clear the employee's background, and the employer covers workers' comp, insurance, and liability. In other words, typically follows the usual path of an employee. And finally, the employee is dependent on the paycheck received by the company as a mean for financial stability. Some of the factors taken into consideration to differentiate between W-2 employee and a 1099 contractor considered significant are as follows. Let's break them down. First, the extent to which the services rendered are an integral part of the principal's business. What does this mean? It means that if all the workers in those positions, W-2 and 1099, left today, could the company continue to function without them? If the answer is no, then they are all W-2 employee and not 1099 workers. For example, a cabinet manufacturing company has W-2 installers, not really key to manufacturing. They can still manufacture without installers and decided to contract 2 or 3 installers for high volume overflow. They can, as long as the business does not become dependent on those installers for success. Second, the permanency of the relationship. Pretty straightforward. Typically, a 1099 is hired for a specific time and project. Even when hired past the year mark, the contract is expected to be expired and renewed. Think about it. What contract do you sign that does not have deadlines or an expiration date on them? Third, the amount of the alleged contractor's investment in facilities and equipment. This one is a bit muddy. It speaks to just how much supply or equipment you provide your contractor, versus what they bring with them. For example, laptops, phones, a company email, etc. That is not to say you can't do that with a 1099, but that then becomes a negotiation in the contract as long as it's tied to what they need to get the work done for the contracting company. The fourth and fifth go hand in hand. The fourth is related to the nature and degree of control by the company. The fifth characteristic is about how much opportunity does the 1099 workers have for profit and loss. This typically speaks to evaluating if we indicate the location, the times, the how, the what in which the workers provide services. If we are responding to the fifth whys as yes, then these workers are considered W-2 employees and not 1099. The sixth speaks to the amount of initiative, judgment, or foresight in open market competition with others required for the success of the claim independent contractor. This typically means, do we allow the workers to provide the same or similar work with other organizations, even our competitors? If the answer is no, then they may be W-2 employee. Finally, the seventh, the degree of independent business organization and operation. This one speaks to, do they have their own company? Are you paying a company or a person? Do they have a separate EIN number or are you paying under their social security, etc.? In summary, just because we call them a 1099 contractor because we have an agreement or contract in place, is licensed or not, or how they get paid is different, etc., does not mean they are not misclassified and still should be a W-2 employee. Now, let's look at it from the IRS perspective. Remember, you never want to mess with Uncle Sam. The IRS looks at 11 different factors within 3 areas. The first one, behavioral. Does the company control or have the right to control what the worker does and how the worker does his or her job? Sounds familiar? Second, financial. Are the business aspects of the worker's job controlled by the payer? These include such consideration as how the worker is paid, whether the expenses are reimbursed, who provides the tools or supplies, etc. And finally, type of relationship. Are there written contracts or employee type benefits such as pension plan, insurance, vacation pay, etc.? Will the relationship continue? And is the work performed a key aspect of the business? The federal standards are the baseline factors that help us make these determinations. However, some states may have different or more restrictive independent contractor classification rules. Several states, such as California, use their own three-factor test, also known as the ABC test, where three main criteria must be met. It is important to understand that before advising to bring someone on as a 1099. To make it interesting, beginning October 1st, 2021, employers must now report 1099 contractors the same way we do for new hired employees. What are the potential penalties? A misclassified gig worker can result in the supposed employer being held liable for on-the-job injuries outside the protections of the workers' compensation system, and for penalties as well. A worker may file a claim for unemployment compensation and be granted benefits if the unemployment agency believes that the worker was misclassified as an independent contractor. If the organization misclassified the worker, it may be liable for penalties and interest, in addition to unpaid unemployment insurance premiums. In summary, here are some misconceptions. First, just because they have an employment agreement does not make them a contract employee. Second, just because they are paid through accounts payable and not payroll does not make them a contract employee. And third, just because as an independent contractor they make more money because they are not eligible for benefits does not make them a contract employee. In fact, because workers often confuse themselves as to what category they fall under and do not understand what it really means to be an independent contractor, when they file taxes, they may respond to a question like this one: did your employer provide benefits? That triggers a red flag for the IRS to look at the employer as to why. When they purchase benefits in the marketplace, they'll ask the same question. That will trigger another red flag. Please reach out to HR to discuss your needs to accomplish a project, instead of automatically offering a 1099 option. They can best guide you as to how to make the determination in the relationship, or simply just to hire as a W-2 employee.